goodness gracious. My subscribers are going the wrong way. Look right here. Subscribe now or I have to get a real job. So I got a comment in the YouTube comment streets. We got a comment that asked me, Lukie, is what Usyk doing? Basically, it said like something to the extent of, like, is Usyk really doing anything that's unprecedented? And I'm going to go into that in this video. So, Oleksandr Usyk is one of these fighters who has won every world title seemingly on the road. He's undisputed at cruiserweight. The problem is nobody watches cruiserweight. You get like kind of like the boxing dorks. They'll be like, oh man, you got to watch these cruiserweight fights. And more than often, the reason they say that is you get two guys who probably should be at light heavyweight, but probably can't win a world title at heavyweight. So they compete at cruiserweight. And the reason they can't compete at the world level at heavyweight is their defense is flawed. So you kind of see two fighters that are just running into each other. It's kind of like the classic cruiserweight trope since we've had guys like David Haye. If you follow boxing a bit, I guess I follow boxing a bit, but if you follow boxing a bit, cruiserweight is kind of like the no man's division. It's kind of like 154. You got cruiserweight, you got 154. You got some of these divisions where for some reason the talent isn't as strong as other divisions. Light heavyweight is sort of like this, where you have like two really, really good guys, and then there's a Mount Rushmore drop-off in talent, and then you go to the next tier. Minor details, if you're a manager, maybe these are divisions to look at for your fighters, because it's probably more vulnerable divisions. So Usyk wins all these fights on the road. He beats guys like Briedis. He beats Murat Gassiev. These are just names to most people because they don't know who they are. Briedis is a guy that once Usyk was gone, he was pretty dominant in the division. Really good champion. Gassiev was like a bull. He was training with Abel Sanchez at the time, which was like a really big deal because Golovkin was like one of the biggest names in the sport. Big puncher, aggressive, relentless, beats him. He's doing it on the road. The problem is, once again, it's kind of like what happens to Inoue. If you're fighting at 5 a.m. on the West Coast, there's just going to be a certain group of people who are just not going to wake up to watch this, and they're not going to be all that interested to hear about the historic greatness of the fights because it doesn't come on their TV conveniently, or it's not happening in real time conveniently for their life. As Americans, typically, we don't like to not have the world revolve around us. Fighters like Usyk, in a way, they're gonna have some issues with that, right? Because the places they get the most money are not always going to be in the U.S. market. So, I mean, Usyk fought on a slew of platforms. He fought on HBO against Michael Hunter. Michael Hunter's a really good fighter. Michael Hunter was cruiserweight at the time. He stops Michael Hunter. That was actually a really, really good fight. That was supposed to be like probably Usyk's debut to HBO. HBO is pretty much out of boxing after that. I remember the Gassiev fight was on Wealth TV, which I don't even know if they do fights anymore, but he was just on all these terrible platforms that you never would watch. Inevitably moves up to heavyweight. My friend James made a great point. Usyk is still unproven because, you know, he beat Joshua twice, but I think Joshua is one of the bigger disappointments in boxing from a legacy and a historical standpoint, even a financial standpoint to a certain extent, because Joshua has never been a B-side fighter. He's had the machine behind him and it has 3 losses. And his whole 2024 is basically just like a stay busy fight because he lost to Usyk twice and it feels like his complete confidence is shot. And to me, when I look at Joshua, I look at a guy that's looking at his team kind of saying, do you think I'm really good? He's been strategically moved, so he's fought guys that are highly ranked, but if you look at him, Joshua was fighting a lot of 37, 38-year-olds, guys that were vulnerable champions. Yeah, it's definitely one of those careers where you can tell the machine and a system was behind him, and they were looking, how can you maximize the capital? I think the problem is Joshua truly believed he was that guy and wants to go for the legacy. It's not really his fault. It just didn't work out. So Usyk beats Joshua twice at the heavyweight division. To me, that made him pretty friggin' historically significant because You had two 2012 gold medal Olympians. You got the heavyweight Olympian Usyk and the super heavyweight gold medal Olympian in Anthony Joshua. To translate to people, that would mean cruiserweight and heavyweight in the pro. Usyk went from cruiserweight all the way up to heavyweight, and now he has a chance to be the 4-belt undisputed champion. Holyfield did it in the 3-belt undisputed era. That alone makes him unprecedented because we don't see many cruiserweights move from the cruiserweight division, go to the heavyweight division, and do anything. Typically, the trope of a cruiserweight is they move up to the heavyweight division. We've never watched their whole career. We hear that they're a really good fighter. We're told if you had seen these fights in Europe, you'd be a huge fan, and then typically they win a fight, lose a fight, and then they're off TV or they come in as a high-level B-side opponent. I think this was best kind of seen in the resurgence of Steve Cunningham's career, maybe in 2013, 2014, where Steve had a great cruiserweight run, comes back, main events is promoting him on NBC, and he fights Tyson Fury on the B side, has a really, really good fight with him, drops Fury, yet ends up getting stopped because Fury kind of lays on him and roughs him up and all that stuff. But that's kind of like the high-end version of what we had expected from cruiserweights. A really good cruiserweight ends up having to fight at heavyweight, has a fairly solid run, but seemingly is outgunned by the bigger fighters. What makes guys like Holyfield and Usyk unprecedented to me is they're moving up in weight, and then they're able to compete with guys that seemingly should be that much bigger than him. What makes Usyk a special fighter to me is he has the ability to offset people's rhythm and timing, not unlike Neo in a way where he's creating patterns, breaking patterns, and his movement and angles along with the pattern of punches are constantly making people have to think. So he's making much bigger fighters, much stronger fighters, slowly put their hands in their pockets because they just get annoyed at getting death by 1,000 punches. He's not really loading up on shots. He's landing accumulative blows as a bigger man. And it's quite remarkable. It's quite remarkable to see, and I truly believe he's going after legacy, that he wants to be the best fighter in the division. The problem is Fury's on kind of like this nonsense run where he fought Dillian White. We could circle that outcome before the fight happened, except for a few really loyal British fans who, I'm sorry, you've been lied to. Chisora, I don't even think anyone was that interested. And now he's fighting an MMA guy that, only the helpless MMA fans will think the guy has a chance. It's really a bad run. So to me, what makes Usyk so impressive is he's winning on the road. He's winning in an ugly style that typically guys can get robbed with. And he's separating himself against the best fighters in the world. And now he's beaten one of the top tier heavyweights in the sport, a guy that was a lot bigger than him, who should have been able to impose his will on him. And instead, Usyk beat him twice. And I think Usyk forever changed Joshua's career to the point where Joshua now is going to be wondering if he even has it. And that came from a much smaller man dominating him in 2 fights with a higher IQ. And what we have to say to that is hip, hip, hooray. If you like this type of reaction from the comments, jump in the comments section. I'm trying to get a little bit more engagement. So let me know if you think this was a real cool video, and I'll keep more of them coming.